Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're welcoming Ron Chepesiuk to the podcast. He has an incredible bio. He has won many contests. He has also had various recommended scripts here at Extreme Screenwriting. He is a former professor. He is an optioned screenwriter. He is a documentary producer, a ghostwriter, and he's I believe he did something with UCLA Extension in the journalism
Yeah,
department.
I was an instructor in their extension
Instructor.
division.
Instructor in their extension program, correct. And he has had 40 books written. Some are award winners, and he's written thousands of articles across different platforms. So, Ron, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Barb. I really appreciate it.
So, we're going to be talking today about two of your projects in particular, and one I just recently read. But before we get to that, you have a bio that is just amazing. So give us your backstory. Tell us how you got into all of the writing, why you decided to go with screenwriting. So tell us your history.
Yeah, I have a long history of writing, but actually I didn't really begin writing until I was 36 years old.
Oh,
And I was on sabbatical in Ireland, and for some reason I got the bug. The Irish are so poetic in their language. I just decided I was going to be a writer. I don't know why. And so I sat down and began writing articles, and a lot of rejections. And I was doing this as a on the side while I was a professor. And it took me a little while. The first lesson of writing, you got to have patience and stubbornness. And I started to sell. And this went on for like several years. And I sold, like you mentioned, I sold 4,000 magazine articles, probably 250, 300 publications. And I reached a point where I was making more money than I was teaching. And so I quit and became a full-time writer. I was teaching at UCLA, freelance writing, and we got a free course because we were teachers, and it's quite expensive. I mean, the courses there at UCLA. So I said, yeah, I got to take advantage of this, and I never thought I could write fiction, believe it or not. And I looked at the screenwriting courses, and I said, well, I'm going to try this. I said, I don't think I'll be that good at it. And I took one of my books and started writing, and I wrote a couple of scenes, and I said, well, this is not as bad as I thought it was. And I liked it, in fact. And so after that course, I said, I got to get into screenwriting. And so I ended up going to Screenwriting U, which I recommend. It's a really great course. And took a bunch of courses from them. And slowly but surely, I started to build up my screenwriting career. And I'm still writing books and then I combined both of them together. I was adapting some of the stories of some of my books. And one of my books is now on VIX streaming service on the Spanish language VIX, which is the largest Spanish language streaming service in the world. My book, Crazy Charlie, and there's a 30-part series on that. And I'm working on another big project. It's really big and could change my whole career on that. So, I reached a point now where I'm trying to decide where I'm going to go with the screenwriting, and it's a tough business, believe me, as you know, right?
yeah.
You got to have a tough hide because
Yes.
there's a lot of rejection and so much opinion about everything, about your scripts, about writing, etc. And that's probably the first lesson I learned is to be persistent and to have patience with my career. And it's starting to show some dividends now.
Well, now you are an expert in crime history. That's one of your main backgrounds is crime history. So tell us about your process for writing crime history. What do you do? Do you outline? I know you research because we talked about this a little bit on our emails. So what's your process?
Yeah, I do a lot of I do a lot of research if I'm doing a subject. If I'm doing a revenge movie, I just did a script on a revenge movie. I studied a whole bunch of movies to see how they did it, and read a couple of scripts, and got some ideas for that. I don't really outline my scripts. I start off. I know where I'm going. It's very important to get the first scene right. Once I get that, then I start to explore. and I sort of have an idea where I'm going, and I have an idea for the ending. Like if it's a thriller, I have a sort of a twist at the end, which I'm working towards, and it's kind of scary because you don't really have any kind of support system when you're writing your script, but it seems to work out. I just did this Bad Henry script, and I always come into problems where I'm figuring, where am I going to go next? What am I going to do next? And somehow I just seem to work it out. And I think that's from subconsciously from my writing experience. Writing so much, writing thousands of words, publishing thousands of words. That I think all that experience has helped me with screenwriting.
Now let's talk about Bad Henry. You mentioned Bad Henry, and that is a recent script that I gave a recommend to. And I was questioning Ron on it because it's based on a true story, and it's about a crime injustice, a serial killer type of situation. And it was so outrageous, it almost infuriated me. And I'm like, is this really real? I mean, I really questioned him on it because this can't be real. No, no, no. And he said, yeah, this is actually how it happened. And I think that's good when you can strike an emotion in the audience. In the crime thriller genre, it really is a masterpiece. So tell us about Bad Henry.
The way I got started with Bad Henry, I was thinking about just writing the book and optioning, trying to get the script optioned. And I mentioned it to a producer friend of mine who's optioned a couple of my scripts, and he said, why don't you write the script yourself? He says, if a producer gets options your book, he's going to want his own writer. They're going to cut you out. So he said,
Yes.
this way you'll be part of the process. And I said, well, okay. And so I started off, and I was kind of nervous writing this script because it's so dark. One of my friends read it, and he said he wanted to take a bath after he read the script.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Because
agree.
you have this killer, true life killer, Henry Wallace. He kills 10 women in a closed area of a couple of miles in East Charlotte, and the police are clueless. And you have a mother, who I make one of the central protagonists in there, who's determined to get justice for her daughter, and she puts pressure on the police chief, who's a decent guy, and he gets locked into the investigation, and between them they come up with an approach which eventually leads to the discovery of Henry Wallace as the killer and his capture on that. And I pretty well, when you're doing it, I love doing adaptive stories because you got a structure to begin with, right? And it's just a question of applying your imagination in order to tweak it into a screenplay format. I did the script, and I was, like I said, very nervous about it because it was really dark to begin with, and he had confessed to the police all of his murders. So I had those transcripts from the killings, and they're pretty gruesome. And so I had to balance between talking about the crimes and leaving something to the imagination. And I think I did a pretty good job on it, considering the challenge of doing that.
Now, are you planning to make this into a book as well, or are you not
Well,
going to do the book?
I've done the book. It's
Oh,
based
okay.
on it's
Okay.
based on my book Bad Henry, the murderous rampage of the Taco Bell Strangler. He was called
Okay.
the Taco Bell Strangler because he worked on fast food restaurants.
Right.
On that. But in fairness to police, the Charlotte police at that time, this script takes place in the early '90s.
Mhm.
They had a lot of crime. Crime was surging. Crack was becoming prevalent, and they didn't have the police force to do it.
They
They
didn't
had like
manpower.
109 murders one year, and they only have 7 police officers
Mm.
in order to investigate it. So you had to give them a little doubt about
Right.
their competency on that. But overall, yeah, they did miss it on that, and I think there was some racism involved. I think if they were more upscale citizens, uh, preferably white, they probably wouldn't have. They probably would have made a more serious effort to investigate the murders, but they missed a lot, And the fact that Wallace knew most of, he knew all of his victims,
Mhm.
and he worked with them or
Yeah.
knew them is quite amazing. And but eventually they got it right, and were able to catch him. He's now on death row. He's been on death row for 27 years.
Mm.
He was supposed to be executed pretty shortly after he was convicted in '97. But the North Carolina had a change of heart on the death penalty, and so the governor suspended it, and it's been in limbo since then. I don't think he'll get. I think he's 59 years old now,
Mm.
so he's got probably a lot of years left, and I think he'll probably spend him in prison.
Now, you mentioned earlier about, you adapted this book over, and because if you don't, if a producer picks up a book that you have just the book, Ron is correct. They will bring in their own screenwriter. But I think a lot of writers don't realize, authors that is, that if they bring in their own writer, they give the writer that money. Of course, they pay you for the book rights, of course,
Mm.
but the screenwriter gets that. And there was recently a case where I had a writer that she decided to do her own screenplay and she sold it for $400,000 based on her book. So I don't think authors realize the kind of money they leave on the table by not taking on that screenplay. You could be leaving 6, even 7 figures on the table.
Right.
It
Yeah.
depends on the producer and the project, of course. So I think that's something a lot of authors should consider. And if you don't want to write it, hire a screenwriter, pay them to do it. I mean, just, as a ghostwriter, that way you own full rights to everything. And sure, you might put in a couple grand, but look what you could make in the end. And you have more creative freedom over the book and the screenplay than that you wouldn't have had before if another screenwriter is brought in. In fact, you may not know what it looks like till it gets to the theater. I mean, so I
Right.
think that
Right.
that's a good point of you doing the screenplay that way. That's a good point to do
Right.
that.
I've optioned
Uh,
another one of my books where one of the first scripts I did, Crazy Charlie, is based on my book, Crazy Charlie, which has been optioned. The Spanish rights have been optioned, but I still got the English rights, and we're trying to pitch that now. I did both a TV pilot and a script for that, and we're trying to pitch that as well.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have both in hand when you work with a producer. Now, you have another project called Death Fences, which is also an adapted script that's won 2 awards. Tell us about that project.
Yeah, it's a true story of a female prison teacher who befriends a prison inmate who happens to be her teaching assistant, and together they battle a corrupt prison administration while facing death threats. And that is in Missouri. It's a true story. Carolyn Giamanco wrote the book. It's a great book, and I optioned that about 1919, and it's been optioned um, by producers 3 times, and but nothing's happened on that, which is not unusual for this business.
Right.
And It's won two awards: the Rio de Janeiro Screenwriters Festival and New Visions, one in Holland. Reaching the end with this other producer that has optioned it, and I think it'll be available. And I think it's one of my best works.
Now, on that one, you said that that's written by a different author. Did you option the rights to her books? Did you make an agreement with her?
Yeah, what happened was I have a podcast called Crime Beat, which is
Right.
in 160 countries. I've been doing it since 2011, and I invited her on my show to talk about her book. And I was enthralled by her presentation, and we talked about it, and she agreed to have the book optioned. And so that's how that originated.
Have you ever, this is my own curiosity here now. Have you ever actually went and interviewed the criminal themselves, like sat face to face with them in the prison situation, or how do you research the actual criminal? I
Well,
know you have the
yeah,
records, but have you
yeah.
done it in person?
This was my first book about a serial killer, and I thought about interviewing him, but I talked with the producer of ABC, one of their major shows, which profiled him, and they couldn't get an interview with him. And
Okay.
I looked him up, and he hadn't given an interview really since he's been in prison on that. And I said, well, do I really want to spend all that time trying to get an interview with him? And then I said, I've got all of his transcripts, and there's a lot of background material. And I said, I really don't. I said, I don't think it's worth the time. So I didn't do that. But I have done books. I've done um, 2 collaborations with, well, the biggest cocaine trafficker in British history, Jesus Henao, Ruiz Henao. And I did Ike Atkinson, who the book is called Sergeant Smack. And I was just in Colombia doing a show for a British production company on Jesus, and it's on the mafia and Great Britain on that. And they're talking about doing a 3-part limited series, and they've pitched the show the idea now, and we're waiting for the results on that.
Okay. Now, are your books on Amazon? Are they? I know you've written over
Yeah,
40 books.
yeah,
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 okay.
right.
So what I'm going to do for our viewers out there is I'm going to put a list of Ron's books in the description below, and all you have to do is click on those books if you're interested in reading any of those materials. And I think they're all in the crime genres. They're all crime genre.
Yeah, I got locked into the crime, but I love writing
That's
about
okay.
crime. There's
That's
nothing
good.
more
That's good.
fascinating than a criminal getting caught.
And a lot of gurus out there will tell you to write across the board, but there are writers who specialize in a particular genre, and Ron is one of them. And I think that's good because it really shows that you are an expert in something, and that makes a big difference. And it makes a difference on multiple levels of being able to write precisely about something. And also, when you get into doing that feature film, they really keep you around because you're the expert. This is going to be going out to a lot of producers, as well as agents, managers, directors. We even have actors on our roster. So, is there anything you'd like to say to them about your projects or something you'd like to focus on in particular?
Yeah, well, I'm glad some agents and managers are looking at this because I'm looking for one right now. Exciting to be a screenwriter. I didn't realize how exciting it was. To watch movies and to use those movies as part of your career, right? It's just amazing to me now. And since I've been a screenwriter, I've never seen a movie the same way. You got to study the craft. Take screenwriting courses. There's a lot of free stuff on the internet. You've got some free stuff too,
Mhm.
Barb, which is great on that, which I regularly watch. And you got to practice every day. And now you don't have to write every day, but you have to do something that advances your career, everything. And you got to be flexible because there's a lot of
Right.
criticism in this business.
Yes.
And if you can't take criticism, you're gonna have a hard time trying to be successful in this. And I don't really read a lot of scripts. I really don't, but I watch a lot of movies. I think everybody's got talent. I really do. And deep down, it's up to you to bring it out of yourself. And if you stick with it, you'll be successful.
And Ron, I thank you so much for your time today. I know it's everybody's got a busy schedule, and we appreciate you being here. So again, thank you to Ron, and we'll see you everybody next time.